Imagine you finish your last bite of dinner, put the fork down, and say, "That's it. No more food until tomorrow, maybe longer." At first, it feels like you're just skipping a late-night snack. Your stomach is quiet. Your routine looks the same, and nothing dramatic seems to happen. But inside, the clock has started. Hour zero of fasting. And the real question begins. From this moment, what are your cells actually doing minute by minute as time passes? Think of it this way. You've heard the claim that autophagy starts at 16 hours for everyone, like a magical switch that flips the second the timer hits 16 hours. It sounds clean, simple, tempting. In reality, your body is never at zero. Autophagy, the process where your cells break down worn-out proteins and damaged components, is quietly running in the background all the time, even when you're eating 3 meals a day. Fasting doesn't suddenly turn it on. Fasting changes the volume, the intensity, and even the location of that cellular cleanup. It's like a city that always has a nighttime cleaning crew. On a normal eating day, the crew is small, picking up obvious trash while the daytime traffic of glucose, insulin, and constant nutrients keeps your metabolism focused on storage and growth. But when you stop eating, the city slowly empties. Street lights dim. Signals change. Your liver, your muscles, your brain, your fat tissue, your immune cells. Each organ starts quietly negotiating. Is it time to pull back on storage mode and send in a bigger cleanup team? Or is there still enough incoming energy to justify business as usual? This is the phase when the drama is completely invisible from the outside. You feel like you're just not having breakfast or pushing lunch a little later. Meanwhile, your hormones are debating. Insulin begins to drift down from its post-meal peak. Glucose from that last meal is still circulating, being tucked away into liver glycogen and muscle. Your fat cells are listening for a signal. Should they keep holding on or start releasing stored fat and later ketones as backup fuel for your brain? So the real mystery isn't a simple, when does autophagy start? The deeper question is, when does it become strong enough to actually matter for you? When does this quiet background maintenance ramp up into a meaningful repair mode that could influence longevity, brain health, and a genuine metabolic reset? And how many hours of true fasting, without constant snacks, amino acids, or sugary drinks, does that really take? In fact, the answer is not one single number. It's a moving curve. Over the next few minutes, you're going to walk that curve. From your last bite of food through 12, 16, 24, 36, and even 72 hours, you'll see how your body gradually shifts from using leftover glucose to burning fat. How insulin and protein intake can delay or accelerate autophagy, and how sleep and exercise bend the timeline. This marks a turning point in how you think about fasting. Not as a willpower challenge, but as a guided tour through your own internal cleanup system, hour by hour. To understand when autophagy really ramps up, you first need to know what it actually is. Imagine zooming inside your cells during a fast. You would not see a magic detox button lighting up. You would see tiny cleanup crews packaging damaged proteins, broken mitochondria, and cellular junk into little membrane bubbles, then digesting them for spare parts. Autophagy literally means self-eating, but in your body it behaves more like smart recycling. Your cells tag worn-out components, wrap them in vesicles, and send them to internal shredders called lysosomes. The amino acids, fats, and sugars that come out the other side get reused as raw material or burned for energy. It's like a 24/7 quality control department, quietly inspecting, dismantling, and rebuilding so your metabolism does not drown in its own waste. Think of it this way. Autophagy is not an on-off switch that only appears when you start fasting. It is always running in the background, even when you are eating 3 meals a day. What changes with fasting is the intensity and the priority. When nutrients are abundant, your body's message is grow, build, store. When nutrients drop, the message flips to conserve, repair, recycle. That flip is what this video is really chasing down in hours. The main voice shouting grow is a pathway called mTOR. When insulin is high and amino acids, especially leucine from protein, are flooding in, mTOR is loud. This is the phase when muscle protein synthesis and storage are favored, but deep autophagy is suppressed. Your body does not bother tearing down old parts when the signal from your last meal says there is plenty of fresh material to work with. Meanwhile, as glucose and insulin fall between meals or during fasting, that growth signal quiets. Another sensor, AMPK, starts speaking up. AMPK is your low fuel alarm. It detects when cellular energy is running low. When AMPK rises and insulin and amino acids stay low, the conductor of your metabolism effectively calls the cleanup crew to center stage. Resources must be conserved and repurposed, so recycling becomes a survival priority instead of a background chore. Your hormones make this switch surprisingly sensitive. A small, frequent snack, or even a high-protein fasting drink, can keep insulin and leucine just high enough to keep mTOR active and autophagy muted. In fact, 2 people can both hit the 16-hour mark. But if one ended the last meal with steak and dessert, and the other with a lighter, lower-protein dinner, their internal cleanup crews will not clock in at the same time. Think of your body as a survival orchestra. Autophagy is not the soloist. It is the disciplined section that steps forward only when the score demands repair and efficiency over growth and storage. In the next part, you will see exactly when, hour by hour, that conductor gives the order for serious cleanup, and why your personal timeline might be very different from the charts you see online. From that last bite, the clock starts. But in the first few hours, almost nothing about autophagy feels special yet. The spotlight is still on digestion, storage, and growth. Imagine you push your plate away at 7 p.m. In the 0-4-hour window, your gut is busy breaking that meal down into absorbable pieces. Glucose from carbohydrates slips into your bloodstream, amino acids from protein follow, and fat begins its slower journey through your lymphatic system. You might feel relaxed and sleepy. But metabolically, this is the least autophagy-friendly period of the entire fast. This is the phase when insulin rises to handle the incoming wave of nutrients. Insulin acts like a traffic controller, directing glucose into your cells, telling your liver to store glycogen, and signaling your fat tissue to hold on to its reserves. At the same time, growth pathways like mTOR are activated by amino acids, especially leucine. Think of it this way. Your body hears, food is here, resources are abundant, build and repair outward, not clean up old parts and recycle. Meanwhile, your liver is stacking glycogen like neatly labeled boxes in a warehouse. Every gram of carbohydrate it can safely store is tucked away to keep your blood glucose stable later on. Your muscles are refilling their own glycogen shelves, topping off energy for your next walk, workout, or restless night of tossing and turning. Fat cells are in full storage mode, packaging excess energy into triglycerides, not opening the vault to release fuel. What you ate at that last meal quietly shifts the entire timeline. A heavy plate of pasta with chicken, bread, and dessert keeps glucose, insulin, and amino acids elevated for hours. It's like extending daylight for your metabolism. Growth and storage signals stay switched on, and autophagy stays blunted. In contrast, a lighter, lower-carb meal with modest protein allows insulin and amino acids to fall sooner, moving the starting line for autophagy slightly closer. In fact, researchers often talk about a kind of nutrient clearance time. Your body needs several hours just to process and clear the bulk of that meal from your bloodstream. For many people, it takes roughly 4 to 6 hours after a substantial dinner before insulin and amino acids drop back toward a level where autophagy can even begin to climb above its normal background rate. This marks a turning point you rarely feel directly. You might just notice the first flicker of hunger, a mild emptiness, or the thought, maybe my body is burning fat now. But at this stage, your metabolism is still leaning on stored glycogen, and autophagy is only starting to loosen its brakes. The real question is what happens next when those glycogen shelves in your liver stop feeling so full, because once that reserve begins to run low, your body has to choose a new primary fuel, and that decision can transform how aggressively your cells switch on deeper autophagy in the hours that follow. In the 6 to 12 hour window, your fast stops being just no food yet and starts becoming a real metabolic negotiation. Your body is easing away from the fed state, but it is not yet committed to deep repair mode. Imagine closing the kitchen at 7 p.m., going to bed, and not touching food until the next morning. By the time you wake up around 7 a.m., you are already 12 hours in. On the surface, it feels ordinary, maybe a dry mouth, a bit of morning stiffness, a gentle pull toward coffee and breakfast. Underneath, your hormones are quietly rearranging the priorities of your entire metabolism. This is the phase when insulin is steadily falling. After your last meal, insulin rose to help shuttle glucose into your cells and store extra energy as glycogen in your liver. Now, as hours pass without new calories, that same hormone backs off. Think of it this way. High insulin is the store and save signal. Falling insulin is the open the vault signal. Your liver hears that message and begins to switch roles from warehouse to supplier. By 6 to 12 hours, your liver is still relying heavily on glycogen, the compact storage form of glucose it built from earlier meals. It breaks that glycogen down and drips glucose into your bloodstream to keep your brain and red blood cells running smoothly. It's like a well-organized pantry, plenty of cans on the shelf, no need yet to raid the emergency supplies. Fat burning is increasing compared to the fully fed state, but it is not yet the star of the show, and autophagy is only nudging upward, not roaring. Subjectively, this can feel like mild hunger waves that roll in and then fade. You might notice a mid-morning dip in focus, or for some, a surprising mental lightness. Those sensations are less about your cells actually starving, and more about your brain adapting to slightly less instant glucose on demand. Habit plays a huge role here. Your body is used to breakfast at a certain time, and breaking that ritual can feel like a crisis even when energy reserves are still generous. Meanwhile, the first meaningful signals for autophagy are starting to appear, especially in your liver. As insulin and amino acids remain low for longer, genes that control cellular cleanup begin to turn up their volume. In fact, animal studies show that autophagy is highly sensitive to both insulin and protein, particularly certain amino acids like leucine. Remove that constant drip of snacks and protein, and your cells gradually feel permission to start recycling worn-out components. Here's the pattern interrupt. This does not mean you are suddenly in full autophagy mode at 10 or 12 hours. Autophagy is not a light switch. It is a dimmer. Baseline cleanup is always happening, and during this window it is rising from background levels. But most human data suggest that the really dramatic changes usually require more sustained fasting, often beyond 16 to 20 hours of low insulin and low amino acids. This marks a turning point in the story, because many internet charts confidently draw a big arrow at 12 hours and label it autophagy starts. That oversimplifies what your body is actually doing. At 6 to 12 hours, you are entering the on-ramp, not the highway. The glycogen shelves are being used, not yet emptied, and your metabolism is testing the edges of a new fuel strategy. The real intrigue comes next. When those liver glycogen stores fall far enough that fat and ketones have to step up, and when autophagy, no longer just a flicker, can become a central survival and repair program. This is where the internet loves to jump in and oversimplify. Around this point, you've probably seen the viral charts, a neat timeline, a bold arrow, and at exactly 16 hours, boom, autophagy starts. It looks clean. It feels scientific, but your body is not a light switch. Think of it this way. Autophagy isn't off, then suddenly on. It's more like a dimmer. Your cells are always doing some level of cleanup, and fasting simply pushes that dial higher as glucose, insulin, and amino acids fall. The famous 16-hour rule mostly comes from animal studies, where metabolism runs faster, and experimental control is much tighter than in real human lives. In fact, what tends to happen between about 14 and 20 hours in a typical, generally healthy adult is more gradual and layered. By now, your liver's glycogen shelves are not just being used, they are significantly depleted. This marks a turning point. Glucose from storage is no longer enough to cover your energy needs. So fat burning rises sharply, and ketones begin to appear in your blood as an alternate fuel for your brain. This is the phase when signals that favor autophagy start to strengthen, especially in your liver. Low insulin removes one of the main brakes. Falling amino acid levels release another. Inside liver cells, nutrient sensors like mTOR quiet down, while pathways that promote recycling, like AMPK, become more active. It's like your liver looks around, realizes the external fuel supply is uncertain, and decides to clean house and reuse internal parts. But not everyone hits this window at the same clock time. Imagine two people starting a fast at 8 p.m. One is metabolically healthy, lean, and physically active, used to longer gaps between meals. Insulin drops quickly, liver glycogen empties faster, and fat and ketone production ramp up sooner. So autophagy-related pathways may be noticeably higher by the early morning. Meanwhile, the other person is insulin-resistant, snacks late, and ended the day with a heavy protein load. Their insulin stays elevated longer, amino acids linger in the blood, and the signal to keep building competes with the signal to start recycling. For this person, the same 16 hours on the clock may still look metabolically like 10 to 12 hours in the first person. Autophagy is also tissue-specific. Your liver and some immune cells may show earlier, clearer shifts during this 14 to 20-hour zone. Skeletal muscle, and in humans, even parts of your brain often need either longer fasting, repeated fasting cycles, or intense exercise to show robust changes in autophagy markers. So if 16 hours isn't a guaranteed on switch, when do you reach the deep cellular cleanup people chase with 24, 36, or even 72-hour fasts? And is there a point where pushing longer stops adding benefits, or even backfires? To really answer that, you have to zoom in on the next window, roughly hour 20 to 24. This is the phase when your metabolism stops negotiating and fully commits to Plan B. By now, your liver's glycogen tank is largely drained. The easy glucose is gone. Your body has already flipped the switch toward fat oxidation, but in this window, that fat-burning engine is running hot. Triglycerides from your fat tissue are broken down, shuttled to your liver, and turned into ketones at meaningfully higher levels. It's like your liver has become a refinery, converting stored fat into a clean, portable fuel your brain can run on. This marks a turning point in how your hormones talk to your cells. Insulin is very low because there's no incoming food to push glucose into storage. Circulating amino acids from protein are low as well because you haven't eaten in almost a day, Meanwhile, glucagon is elevated, telling your liver to keep releasing fuel. And AMPK, an energy-sensing enzyme inside your cells, is activated. Think of it this way. All these signals together are your body's way of saying resources are limited, conserve, repair, recycle. That exact hormonal fingerprint is ideal for autophagy. Without insulin and amino acids, constantly shouting, build, your cells are free to switch into clean up and reuse mode. Damaged proteins, worn-out mitochondria, and misfolded fragments become fair game. In fact, animal studies show robust jumps in autophagy pathways when this low insulin, low nutrient state is sustained. In humans, it's harder to peak directly inside your cells. Researchers can't just biopsy your brain every few hours. But indirect evidence is building. Studies in people doing 24-hour fasts show increased expression of autophagy-related genes in the liver and in certain immune cells, along with changes in signaling pathways like mTOR and AMPK that are tightly tied to cellular recycling. You're not turning autophagy on from zero here. You're amplifying a background process into something more substantial. Subjectively, this window can feel surprisingly mixed. Imagine waves of hunger that rise, crest, and then fade, even though you still haven't eaten. As ketones climb, some people report a strange calm focus, as if your brain has switched to a steadier fuel. Others feel mild fatigue, a little lightheaded, or notice feeling colder than usual. That chilliness is your body dialing down non-essential heat production, redirecting energy to vital organs and internal maintenance. None of those sensations automatically mean harm. They're signs that your metabolism is reallocating resources, prioritizing survival and repair over constant digestion and storage. But here's the catch. While 24 hours is a meaningful milestone, many of the most dramatic autophagy shifts in research appear beyond a single day of fasting. So how far do you actually need to go to tap into deeper cleanup? And at what point do the trade-offs start to outweigh the benefits? So now you know that deeper autophagy tends to appear later, beyond that first simple day without food. But here's the twist. Many people never actually get there, even when they think they are. Imagine 2 mornings. In the first, you finish dinner at 7 p.m., drink only water, and go all the way until the next evening without a single calorie. In the second, you also stop eating at 7 p.m., but at 8 a.m., you pour a keto coffee with heavy cream, maybe a splash of milk, or you mix in BCAAs to protect muscle while you fast. On paper, both look like 20-hour fasts. Inside your body, they are completely different metabolic worlds. Think of it this way. Autophagy thrives in a low-signal environment. Low insulin, low amino acids, no constant reminder that food is available. When you add cream, milk, or BCAAs, you are sending a tiny but very real signal. Those proteins, especially leucine in BCAAs and even certain fats, nudge insulin and amino acid levels upward. It's like quietly flipping mTOR back on in sensitive tissues, telling your cells, resources just arrived, you can pause the deep cleanup. This is the phase when many people feel proud of their fast, but under the hood, the signal is mixed. Autophagy is not zero, but it is blunted. Your liver still mobilizes some fat. Your hormones still shift compared to constant grazing. Yet that sharp, low-nutrient trigger that really amplifies cellular recycling is softened. In fact, in muscle and liver cells that respond strongly to leucine and insulin, even small, repeated hits can keep the cleanup crew working half speed. Meanwhile, black coffee and plain tea tell a different story. They bring almost no calories, no protein, and minimal direct impact on insulin in most people. Caffeine can even increase fat mobilization, nudging your metabolism toward using stored fat and ketones as energy. It's like giving your brain a gentle wake-up call without handing your cells a snack. The moment you add cream, sweeteners with calories, or collagen and BCAAs, the picture shifts from signal of scarcity back toward signal of feeding. Here's the uncomfortable implication. If you drink a creamy coffee at 8 a.m., sip a BCAA mix before a midday workout, and finally eat at 2 p.m., your clock might say 18 to 20 hours of fasting. But your cells may have spent much of that window in a muted stop-and-go autophagy state, constantly interrupted by nutrient signals. You are technically not eating meals, yet you are repeatedly telling your metabolism, don't fully commit to repair, food keeps trickling in. So ask yourself, are you truly fasting or just delaying breakfast with accessories? This marks a turning point in how you define a fast, because in the next sections, you will see how a clean, uninterrupted 24 to 36 hour fast compares to these snack-interrupted routines, and how that difference can determine whether your cellular cleanup is a whisper or a roar. So now imagine you've pushed past that clean 24-hour mark. No cream, no snacks, no amino acids sneaking in under the radar. Just water, maybe electrolytes, and time. This is the phase when your metabolism stops negotiating with the fed state and commits to a different operating system. Between 24 and 36 hours, the metabolic landscape looks very different from your usual day. Glucose production from your liver stabilizes at a lower, steady baseline. Insulin is not just low, it is consistently low, removing one of the main brakes on deeper autophagy. Ketones climb higher, sometimes reaching levels where they can cover a large share of your brain's energy needs. Think of it this way. Glucose is no longer the main character. It's the supporting actor. Your liver is at the center of this shift. It is breaking down fat into ketones, maintaining just enough glucose through gluconeogenesis, and at the same time ramping up its own internal cleanup. Damaged mitochondria, misfolded proteins, and worn-out components are tagged and recycled through autophagy pathways. It's like your liver decided to close the factory to customers for a day so it can overhaul the machinery that keeps you alive. Meanwhile, your fat tissue becomes a quieter, steadier fuel pump. In the first day of fasting, fat release can be a bit erratic, influenced by stress, movement, and hormones. By hour 24 to 36, the signal is clearer. Low insulin, rising catecholamines, and growing ketone use tell fat cells to release fatty acids more consistently. Those fatty acids feed your liver, your muscles, and even your heart, helping your body spare precious protein. Your immune system is also changing gears. Certain immune cells begin to shift from an aggressive, attack-oriented stance toward a more conservative, repair-focused profile. Autophagy inside immune cells helps clear damaged proteins and faulty components that, if left unchecked, can drive chronic inflammation. In fact, some researchers think part of fasting's anti-inflammatory effect comes from this internal housekeeping inside your immune army. Then there is your brain. As ketones rise, neurons can rely less on glucose and more on this alternative fuel, which they use efficiently. Animal studies suggest that during prolonged fasting, neuronal autophagy and synaptic pruning increase, helping clear out dysfunctional connections and protein debris. It's like your brain's network is defragmenting its hard drive, which may be one reason many people report unusual mental clarity or a calm, focused state in this window. This 24 to 36 hour span is why so many autophagy fasts aim beyond a single day. Multiple tissues, liver, fat, immune cells, possibly your brain, appear to have autophagy turned up meaningfully above baseline, even if direct human measurements are still limited and often rely on indirect markers, not biopsies. But here's the catch. If autophagy and ketones keep rising as you move toward 48 and even 72 hours, what else rises with them? Stress hormones, nutrient strain, electrolyte risks? The next question is unavoidable. Where is the sweet spot between powerful cellular cleanup and pushing your body one step too far? Between about hour 36 and hour 72, you enter the most controversial part of the fasting timeline. This is the phase when the promise of deep autophagy collides with the reality of biological stress. By this point, insulin is not just low, it is consistently suppressed. Glucose trickles in from your liver through gluconeogenesis, but most of your energy is now coming from fat and ketones. Think of it this way. Your metabolism has switched from day-to-day budgeting to emergency conservation mode, stretching every molecule, recycling every usable part. Low amino acids remove one of the main brakes on autophagy, so cellular cleanup can run more aggressively across multiple tissues. In animal experiments, this window is when autophagy markers often peak in the liver, muscle, and immune cells. It's like your body calls a full system maintenance shutdown. Old mitochondria are dismantled, misfolded proteins are broken down, and damaged cell parts are fed back into energy pathways. Meanwhile, in long fasts, rodents show stem cell activation and immune reset patterns. Old immune cells are cleared, and new ones begin to emerge once feeding resumes. Limited human data hint at similar trends. Multi-day fasting can reduce circulating white blood cells and, after refeeding, stimulate regeneration in certain immune populations. This marks a turning point. The same signals that drive repair are also signals of strain. As you move past 36 hours, muscle protein breakdown starts to play a larger role in maintaining blood glucose and supporting vital organs. Cortisol and other stress hormones rise to keep your brain supplied with energy. But that hormonal push can mean poorer sleep, irritability, or feeling wired and drained at the same time. Electrolytes become a bigger issue here. Without sodium, potassium, and magnesium coming in through food, your heart, nerves, and muscles are running on a tighter margin. Dizziness when you stand up, heart palpitations, or intense fatigue are all signs that the fast is no longer just about elegant cellular recycling. It is stressing core systems. For people who are underweight, ill, pregnant, breastfeeding, on insulin or blood pressure medications, or dealing with eating disorders, this zone can be genuinely dangerous, not therapeutic. Imagine pushing harder on the gas pedal when the fuel light is already on. More autophagy is not automatically better. Beyond a certain point, the marginal gains in cellular cleanup may be outweighed by the rising costs in muscle loss, hormonal disruption, and electrolyte imbalance. For most relatively healthy people, repeated shorter fasts, time-restricted eating, or an occasional 24-hour fast can harness meaningful autophagy without asking your body to survive a 72-hour ordeal. In fact, you do not need to live in this extreme window to benefit. In the next section, you will see how to translate this complex timeline into realistic strategies, overnight fasts stacked with exercise, strategic 18-24-hour fasts, and patterns that support autophagy while still fitting a normal life. The goal is smart, sustainable timing, not chasing the most punishing fast you can tolerate. And if you're still here tracking these timelines and hormone shifts hour by hour, that already says something important about you. You're not just casually curious about fasting. You actually want to know what your body is doing beneath the surface when glucose is fading, insulin is dropping, and your cells are quietly deciding whether to burn fat or recycle their own damaged parts. Imagine being able to look at a 16-hour or 24-hour fast and immediately picture what your liver, your brain, your gut, and your fat tissue are doing at each stage. That is the level of detail this channel keeps coming back to: autophagy, metabolism, hormonal rhythms, told like a story, organ by organ, instead of a list of vague benefits. Think of it this way. Most people hear autophagy as a buzzword, You're watching long enough to see how it actually unfolds over time, why insulin and amino acids delay it, and how ketones, sleep, and exercise can nudge it earlier. That puts you in a small group that wants deep dive explanations, not just quick tips. So here is a calm, simple invitation. If you want more breakdowns like this, fasting, metabolic health, rare states your body almost never enters in modern life, consider subscribing, following, or sharing this video with someone who is just as fascinated by what their cells are doing in the background. No pressure, no hard sell, just a way to make sure you see the next episode when it maps out the other survival modes hidden inside your metabolism. This is the phase when the story actually gets more practical. Up to now, you have seen what happens on its own. Meanwhile, the most important parts are still ahead. How to use this knowledge in daily life. How to avoid the biggest mistakes people make when chasing autophagy. And how to stop assuming a longer, harsher fast is always better. It's like you've been watching a detailed weather report for your internal climate. The next step is learning how to tilt that forecast in your favor. In fact, the timing of autophagy for you is not just about the clock, it is about your age, your baseline insulin levels, your sleep quality, your muscle mass, and how you move your body during the fast. This marks a turning point in the video. From here, the focus shifts from what happens to how to influence it, starting with the surprising role of exercise, sleep, and overall metabolic health in deciding when autophagy truly begins for your body, not just in a textbook timeline. So from here, the question becomes sharper. Why can two people fast for the exact same number of hours, yet one slips into deep autophagy while the other barely crosses the starting line? Imagine two bodies hitting the 16-hour mark. On the surface, the clocks match. But under the hood, the metabolic context is completely different. Your baseline insulin sensitivity, your liver health, and your body composition quietly decide how fast you move from technically not eating to a truly fasted physiology. This is the phase when the timeline stops being generic and starts becoming personal. Think of it this way. Insulin is your gatekeeper. If your hormones are used to spikes from frequent meals, sugary drinks, and late-night snacks, insulin can stay elevated for long stretches. That means even at 14 or 16 hours, your cells may still be acting like food is around. Autophagy, which thrives in a low insulin, low amino acid environment, stays dialed down. Meanwhile, someone who is metabolically flexible with good insulin sensitivity can drop into that low insulin state much sooner. The same 16-hour clock on the wall might feel like 10 hours to a chronically insulin-resistant body, and 20 hours to a body that clears glucose efficiently and taps into fat quickly. It's like two cars driving the same distance, but one stuck in first gear while the other is already cruising on the highway. Frequent snacking makes this gap even wider. Grazing every 2 to 3 hours keeps tiny pulses of insulin and amino acids flowing. Even healthy snacks can do this. By the time you start fasting, your liver is still processing leftovers, and the signal for autophagy is muffled. In fact, some people need significantly longer fasting windows just to reach the same hormonal quiet that others hit in a shorter time. Protein adds another layer. A big evening steak, a late-night protein shake, or a high-leucine meal keeps amino acids high for hours. Those amino acids are powerful brakes on autophagy. Contrast that with someone whose last meal was lighter, earlier, and lower in protein. By midnight, their amino acid levels are already drifting down, and your liver can shift sooner toward fat, ketones, and deeper cellular cleanup. Age and sleep quietly tilt the scales too. As you get older, your hormones change, growth hormone pulses shrink, and your metabolism can shift more slowly. Poor sleep raises cortisol, disrupts insulin, and keeps your body in a low-grade stress mode. That combination can delay the drop into the deep fasted state, even if the fasting window on paper looks perfect. But there is one lever that cuts across age, insulin resistance, and even recent meals. A lever that can trigger powerful tissue-specific autophagy, sometimes even in the fed state. And when you combine this lever with fasting, the equation changes completely. That lever is exercise. Imagine your body as a power grid that suddenly has to handle a surge in demand. A hard walk, a lifting session, even intervals on a bike all do the same basic thing. They stress your muscles, your heart, and even your brain. That stress is not a problem, it is the signal. To keep up with the energy demand, your cells flip on many of the same pathways that fasting uses. This is the phase when AMPK, one of your main energy sensors, lights up. During exercise, ATP is burned quickly, and your cells read that as a shortage. In response, AMPK tells your body to stop wasting energy on growth and start making energy more efficiently. Think of it this way. It is like your metabolism goes into emergency efficiency mode, pulling in extra fuel and cleaning out damaged components that are slowing the system down. Autophagy is part of that response. In muscle, in your heart, and sometimes in parts of your brain, exercise can increase cellular cleanup even when you are not fully fasted. Meanwhile, hormones like adrenaline rise, pushing glucose into working muscle and nudging your liver to break down glycogen and fat. The result is a temporary state that looks metabolically a lot like a short, targeted fast inside specific tissues. Now add timing. Training in a fasted state amplifies this effect. If you roll into a morning workout after an overnight fast, your insulin is already lower, amino acids from your last meal are mostly cleared, and your body is more willing to tap into fat and even activate deeper repair pathways. It is like stacking two signals on top of each other: nutrient scarcity plus high energy demand. Take a concrete example. You stop eating at 8 p.m., sleep, skip breakfast, and start a 9 a.m. workout. By that point, you are roughly 13 hours into fasting. Your insulin is down, your liver has already been supplying glucose, and now your muscles suddenly ask for more energy. Compared to someone who simply sits still for 16 hours, your working muscles and heart may experience a much stronger autophagy signal, even though the clock says you have fasted for fewer hours. This marks a turning point in how you think about autophagy. It is not only about white-knuckling through 36 or 72 hours without food. In fact, for many people, that is not safe or realistic. Shorter fasts paired with smart movement can give you repeatable tissue-specific cleanup cycles that fit into a normal week. Pattern interrupt. Autophagy is not an on-off switch. It is a dial. You can turn it with meal timing, with exercise, with sleep. In the next section, you will see how to use that dial strategically without drifting into extremes that backfire on your hormones and long-term metabolism. Imagine zooming in organ by organ, watching that autophagy dial turn during your first 1 to 3 days without food. It is not one uniform wave washing over your body at the same time. It is more like a relay race, with different tissues taking the baton at different hours. Your liver runs the first leg. Around 16 to 24 hours, glycogen is running low, and your liver is forced to make harder choices. This is the phase when it leans into gluconeogenesis, creating glucose from lactate and amino acids, while ramping up fat breakdown. As fat is burned, ketones rise, and at the same time, liver cells start clearing damaged mitochondria and proteins to keep this higher workload efficient. Think of it this way. Your liver is both the power plant and the janitor, producing fuel while sweeping its own floors. Meanwhile, skeletal muscle is playing defense. Your body does not want to cannibalize your quads and biceps unless it has to. Early in fasting, muscle autophagy turns up just enough to repair and recycle worn-out components, especially if you are still moving or doing light exercise. In fact, exercise itself is a powerful trigger for muscle autophagy, even when you are not fasting. But as you push beyond 48 to 72 hours, the balance can shift. Autophagy and breakdown can blur, and you begin dipping into contractile proteins for fuel, edging from helpful cleanup into unwanted muscle loss. Your brain enters the story as ketones climb. By the second day, ketones can supply a large share of your brain's energy, creating a steadier fuel stream than the rise and crash pattern of glucose. It is like switching your brain from a flickering candle to a slow-burning lantern. Animal studies suggest that during this state, neurons increase autophagy, clearing misfolded proteins and damaged cell parts that would otherwise accumulate with age. This marks a turning point for long-term brain health. Short, repeated fasts may act like scheduled maintenance for your neural circuits. The immune system and gut join in with their own timelines. Certain white blood cells are highly sensitive to nutrient and insulin levels, and fasting can push them into autophagy, pruning older, less effective cells and making room for fresh immune populations once you refeed. In the gut, the lining finally gets extended rest from constant digestion. Cells can repair tight junctions, and deeper fasts over 24 hours are linked to shifts in your microbiome towards species that handle fat and fiber differently. All of this means that organ-specific timing matters. Choosing whether your goal is metabolic repair in your liver, resilience in your brain, or an immune and gut reset will change how long you fast and how often. In the next section, you will see how to match fasting patterns to those priorities, so you get targeted autophagy benefits without pushing your hormones and metabolism into the red zone. All of that organ-specific precision sounds powerful, but there is a hard reality check here. Not every body is built to chase deep autophagy. For some people, extended fasting isn't a biohack. It's a real hazard. Imagine someone who is already underweight, with very little fat to spare. When that person pushes into 48 or 72-hour fasts, your body is not just burning stored fat. It is forced to tap into muscle and vital proteins, and the margin for error becomes razor thin. The same danger shows up in people with a history of eating disorders where cleaning your cells can quietly become a socially approved way to restrict food and spiral back into obsessive patterns. Pregnancy and breastfeeding are another red line. This is the phase when your hormones are already working overtime to support another life. Prolonged fasting here can mean less glucose delivery to a developing brain, more stress hormones, and impaired milk supply. Children and adolescents also belong firmly in the do not experiment group. Their brains, bones, and hormones are building for the future. Aggressive autophagy is not the priority, growth is. Then there are medications. If you use insulin or sulfonylureas for diabetes, fasting without supervision can drive glucose dangerously low. Hypoglycemia can show up as shaking, confusion, blurred vision, or even loss of consciousness. Certain blood pressure drugs, especially combined with fluid shifts during fasting, can amplify dizziness, fainting, and in vulnerable hearts trigger arrhythmias. Think of it this way. Extended fasting is a controlled metabolic stress test. Push it too far, and the control disappears. Electrolyte imbalances from low sodium, potassium, or magnesium can make your heart race or skip beats. Standing up quickly can feel like the room tilts. In fact, in someone with underlying heart disease or eating disorder vulnerability, those biohacker fasts can unmask serious problems that were quietly compensated before. This marks a turning point in how you think about autophagy. Deep, repeated multi-day fasts are not a universal goal. For many bodies, the win is stability. Regular nourishment, consistent sleep, calmer hormones, and moderate fasting windows that do not feel like a chronic alarm bell. Your brain and your liver read extreme, frequent fasting as stress, and if that stress never lets up, metabolism can push back with fatigue, hair shedding, low thyroid function, menstrual changes, or binge episodes after each fast. So practical safety rules matter. Any fast beyond about 24 hours is a talk to your healthcare professional first zone, especially if you have diabetes, cardiovascular disease, low blood pressure, or take prescription medications. Hydration is non-negotiable, and so are electrolytes. Plain water alone over multiple days can dilute sodium and make symptoms worse. Refeeding after a longer fast also has to be gradual. Smaller meals, slower carb intake, and attention to how your body responds so you do not shock your system with a sudden flood of glucose and insulin. Meanwhile, the real question becomes, how do you get enough autophagy to support repair without crossing into this risky territory? In the next section, you will see exactly how to translate all of this into realistic, tiered fasting protocols that respect your hormones, your metabolism, and your limits, so you stop guessing where the line is and start working just on the right side of it. So how do you turn all of this biology into something you can actually live with? Imagine your week as a rhythm, not a punishment schedule. The goal is to let your body visit this rare repair state often enough to matter, without turning every day into a survival drill. The first layer is a daily mini autophagy approach. This is the phase when you stop eating a bit earlier in the evening and let the clock work for you overnight. Think of it this way: a 12-16 hour fast from dinner to the next day's first meal nudges insulin down, keeps late night glucose spikes away, and gives your liver time to clear the backlog. You might finish dinner at 6 or 7 p.m., avoid heavy protein late at night, then delay breakfast until 8, 9, or even 10 a.m. Subjectively, this feels manageable. You still eat every day. You still have social dinners. But metabolically, those quiet night hours are when low insulin and lower amino acids allow modest autophagy to rise above the usual baseline. Add in occasional fasted morning movement, like a brisk walk or light workout before that first meal, and you amplify fat use and local autophagy in muscle without extreme deprivation. On top of that daily rhythm, you can layer a 24-hour reset every week or two. It's like pressing a deeper clean button for your metabolism. You simply extend that overnight window to around 20-24 hours using only water, black coffee, or plain tea. For example, you might eat dinner on Sunday, then wait until Monday dinner for your next meal. This marks a turning point in your internal chemistry. Insulin is significantly lower, ketones are rising, and the first major gear shift in multi-organ autophagy is more likely to appear. Most healthy adults tolerate this surprisingly well once they adapt. Your brain may feel unusually clear from ketones, or you may notice waves of hunger that come and go as hormones pulse. The key is that this reset stays occasional, not daily, so your body has time to refeed, rebuild, and maintain muscle. For experienced, medically cleared individuals, there is a cautious 36-hour deep clean option. Dinner one day, then no calories until breakfast 2 mornings later. In fact, this is the window where research and clinical experience suggest a stronger push into multi-organ autophagy, deeper fat mobilization, and more pronounced shifts in immune and gut cells. But the risk also rises if you ignore electrolytes, overall nutrition, or jump in from a highly processed diet. Here's the pattern interrupt. Success is not, I survived 72 hours. Success is, I built a sustainable rhythm, where my body regularly visits this repair mode and then recovers well. These protocols are dials, not rules. You adjust them based on your health, medications, age, and how you actually feel. Meanwhile, the real magic is in the cycle: stress, then recovery, fasting, then smart refeeding. In the next section, you will see how to break these fasts, what to eat afterward, and how to protect your muscles while you chase cellular cleanup, not burnout. So when you zoom out, those dials you adjust, fast length, refeed, training, are part of something bigger. Imagine your whole body as a survival orchestra. Most days, every section is stuck playing the same loud, busy song: eat, digest, store, repeat. Autophagy is not a random solo. It's an entire movement in that symphony that rarely gets performed in modern life. Think of it this way: from the moment you wake up and grab a snack, your hormones are already setting the score. Glucose rises, insulin follows, amino acids from protein enter the bloodstream. This is the phase when your metabolism is told, food is here, prioritize growth and storage. If you graze from morning until late at night, that message never really shuts off. Insulin never stays low for long. Amino acids never fully drop. The repair movement stays buried in the sheet music. Compare that to how your ancestors lived. Meals were uneven, food was seasonal, and long stretches without eating were built in by the environment. It's like your liver, your muscles, your fat cells evolved expecting intermissions, periods when incoming fuel would quiet down, forcing the orchestra to switch from playing the store everything theme to the clean and repair theme. Fasting is not a biohack imposed on your body. It is a language your body already speaks. This is where autophagy earns a reframe. You often hear it described as your body eating itself, which sounds destructive, even dangerous. In reality, it is ruthlessly selective. Damaged proteins, broken mitochondria, misfolded junk inside your cells are tagged and recycled first. In fact, this selective breakdown is what keeps the whole system efficient, especially when resources are scarce. Your body is not panicking, it is prioritizing. Over time, thoughtful cycles of fasting and movement train this system. Metabolic flexibility is your ability to move between burning glucose and burning fat, between growth mode and cleanup mode, without feeling wrecked. When you maintain long eating windows, poor sleep, and constant snacking, those transitions feel like a crisis. But when you regularly allow insulin to fall, let your fat stores contribute energy, and challenge your muscles, your body learns. It becomes easier to slip into and out of autophagy states with less drama, less brain fog, and more stable energy. This marks a turning point in how you think about when autophagy starts. The exact hour matters less than the pattern your cells experience week after week. The real power is designing a life where your brain, your liver, your gut, and your immune cells routinely get the same clear message: it's safe to clean house now. In the next section, you will see how to choose that message on purpose, using what you eat after a fast to reinforce repair instead of undoing it in a single meal. So now you reach the real question underneath all the science: how long until autophagy actually starts ringing on for you? Think of it this way: autophagy is not a light switch that flips from off to on at hour 16 or 24. Your cells are always running a background cleanup program, quietly recycling damaged proteins and worn-out parts while you go through your day. Fasting doesn't create that program, it amplifies it. For most humans, meaningful amplification usually needs time. Insulin has to fall and stay low. Amino acids from protein have to stop flooding the bloodstream. That is why many experts point to roughly 18 to 24 hours of true fasting as the window when autophagy begins to rise above its normal hum, and the 24 to 36 plus hour range as the period when deeper, multi-organ shifts are more likely to appear. Imagine two people finishing dinner at 7 p.m. One eats a high-carb, high-protein meal, snacks at 10 p.m., and has a sugary coffee at 8 a.m. the next day. Insulin barely gets a break. Autophagy stays muted. The other finishes a balanced dinner, stops eating, sleeps well, and doesn't eat again until early afternoon. Insulin stays low for longer, amino acids drift down, and the signal for cellular cleanup becomes much clearer. This is the phase when individual differences matter. If your metabolism is insulin sensitive, your body may slip into that 18-24 hour autophagy zone more smoothly. If you carry more visceral fat, have prediabetes, or graze all day, it can take longer for insulin and nutrients to fall far enough. Age, sleep quality, and recent protein intake all nudge that window earlier or later. Meanwhile, exercise can trigger its own wave of autophagy in muscle and heart even before a long fast, and then layer on top of fasting once nutrients drop. In practice, this means there is no single magic hour that applies to everyone. There is only a pattern: lower insulin plus lower amino acids held for long enough in a body that feels safe enough to repair. So what can you actually do with this? It's like training your metabolism instead of chasing one perfect fast. Shorter, regular fasts, 12 to 16 hours overnight, a few times a week, paired with movement, can give your cells frequent, modest boosts in autophagy without extreme deprivation. Then if your health status and doctor agree, occasional 20 to 24 hour fasts, or slightly longer, may offer deeper cleanups without needing to push into risky, multi-day territory. The safest path is gradual. Start with an honest overnight fast. Finish dinner earlier, delay breakfast slightly, and notice how your body responds. Add a fasted walk in the morning and feel how your liver, your fat tissue, and your muscles handle the shift from glucose to fat and ketones. If you ever consider going beyond 24 hours, treat it like a medical experiment. Get professional guidance, monitor symptoms, and stop if your body sends distress signals. This marks a turning point in how you think about fasting. You are not chasing a single hour on the clock. You are designing a rhythm where your brain, your liver, your gut, and your immune cells repeatedly get permission to clean house. If this helped you see autophagy as more than a buzzword, subscribe for more deep dives into metabolism and cellular repair. Share your own fasting experiences or questions in the comments, especially how different meal timing or exercise changed how you felt. And if you want to know what to eat to either extend this repair mode or shut it down instantly, the next episode will walk you through the exact post-fast choices that can turn this survival orchestra up or silence it in a single meal.